Hey guys, welcome back, I guess, to another episode of Language Diary. And today we're going to be talking about something I feel that's a little bit more useful slash applicable, like instantly usable when learning languages. And as the title suggests, we're going to talk a little bit about the difficulties, I think, of moving to a foreign country, and yeah, so what you can do to prepare to survive if you're going to be moving to a foreign country. So if you have the opportunity, if you have a little bit of a window of time before you move to a different country, what's the first thing that you'll do when you attempt to learn a language, right? Assuming that you have some fundamentals down. Well, the first kind of thing that you're going to prepare yourself to do is to handle various different situations, right? For example, the common ones would be going to a restaurant, shopping at the grocery store, buying, I don't know, a train ticket, something like that, right? We need to have enough vocabulary to kind of like survive. So survival vocabulary, right? So in other words, those boring phrases, phrase books, situational dialogue materials finally get to, be used or be useful to us as learners. So today, that's what I want to focus my share today, which is how to survive and how to learn, situational phrases and vocab and dialogues and all that. And just to kind of share with you guys where this came about. I was actually at the Korean, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe like a grocery store. They sell all kinds of stuff. Anyway, I was there, right? And I was like thinking to myself, well, I've learned Korean and I don't really get a chance to use it, like use Korean in real life. So this is a perfect opportunity to use it, right? And so I was I got my stuff, the stuff I wanted to buy. I got like kimbap, which is like the Korean seaweed rolls. And I think, what did I get? I think that's all I got, yeah. And so after I did that, I lined up and it was my turn to pay. And I was like saying, oh, 안녕하세요. And then the clerk, I don't know, what terminology you guys use, but the person behind the counter was like speaking in very rapid Korean. All the phrases were very short. And I found myself very almost, I was cringing at the thought that I've learned Korean, I've studied Korean for such a long time and I can't hear what they say. And it was like this huge kind of revelation / wake up call for me that there needs to be something a little bit more, on our part and perhaps on the part of people creating materials to learn languages to help us get through these situations, because it's really hard. I mean, there's only a couple of possibilities in terms of what they're going to say. Like, for example, behind the counter, I think she was asking, do you have a points card? Do you need a bag? And how are you going to pay? And that's it, right? So I actually had, I think, the vocabulary to answer, but I just couldn't hear. It was just so fast. And so that kind of was the prompt, the trigger for this presentation. And so I kind of want to share with you guys why I think learning these situational phrases is a really hard thing, and a couple of things that we can perhaps try to get over these challenges. Not that I'm saying that I'm very good at them, I'm actually horrible, but this is like my worst area in language learning, hands down. But yeah, so this is another reason I wanted to kind of do this presentation and share with you guys. So why learning situational phrases is hard? Well, first off, like my experience at the Korean grocers, they're usually very fast. Like, imagine, right? You're in a queue, or you're in a restaurant, someone's taking your order, or you're buying, I don't know, a train ticket. Like, there are lots of people lining up behind you. They have to be fast, right? So you can't really expect people to kind of like speak in a standard way, speak slowly and be patient with you and all that. It's not going to happen. So that's the first thing. Second of all, there's usually they're like fixed expressions. And these expressions are usually never, ever covered in books. unless you find a really, really practical handbook that gives you these up-to-date phrases that are used today, in this day and age, right? Usually it doesn't happen, as you guys probably know. And third of all, we can't really practice them, right? I mean, who are you going to practice them with? And you can't really just like run down every time to a local, I don't know if you're learning Cantonese, run down to a Chinese restaurant just to practice your Cantonese, right? It's not going to happen. And sometimes you just don't have, maybe you're learning a language and there's no restaurants or establishments in the area that speak that language. Reason number 4, phrase books are very, very generic, right? They give you a bunch of vocabulary and phrases just to kind of, and they're fairly standardized, right? But in reality, the phrase is what people usually say behind the counter. It's usually going to be completely different than what you're going to see in phrase books. And of course, last but not least, these situational dialogue courses, handbooks, they never cover everything, never. So these are some of the challenges. And in response to that, how can we get over these situations? Well, what can help us is that usually because these exchanges are so rapid, or not because, these changes are usually very rapid. But the good news for us is that the things that can usually come up, they're usually very short, questions, and they're usually questions that they're within like an expected area. Like, what movie do you want to see? How many tickets do you want? Are you buying an adult or a ticket for children or stuff like that, right? It's all very standard. So you can probably guess, with some context and maybe some body language and all that. And if you don't know, you didn't listen the first time, you can hear the first time, you can always say, I'm sorry, could you repeat that again in the language that you're learning? So we've got that going for us. But there are a couple of things I would recommend trying as well to kind of prepare yourself, before you go to these situations. I know this sounds really lame, sort of, but I feel that with situations like these, like when I was using like a dialogue course back in the day when I was studying French, for example, I would try to imagine that situation in my mind while reading the dialogue out, maybe following the audio if I had audio. And having that visualization really helps kind of, it enables these phrases and vocabulary, new words to really sink in, as opposed to just us reading them, glossing over these new phrases and just forgetting about them later on. I mean, putting a little bit of effort to kind of imagining the situation, or maybe ourselves in the situation potentially, can really increase the stickiness of those phrases. And let's see, I would also recommend against breaking down those phrases in terms of like their grammar, syntax structures, and all that kind of good stuff. Just remember them as is, right? Come up with a list of things that you need, ask someone how to say them and memorize them and just use them. Because a lot of the times you're going to have a lot of these fixed expressions that usually don't fit neatly into these rules that you've learned about the language that you're learning. Another one is, I feel it's really important if you have audio available with these dialogue courses to listen and repeat until you have them, like, these phrases, these expressions like the back of your hand. Strange as it is as an expression, like the back of your hand. How many of us actually know what the back of our hands look like? Anyway, I digress. So there's that. Number 4, don't try to remember all the specialized terms, especially, for example, when it comes to food, right? There's so many dishes, so many variations, and some people like to give them artistic names. How are you going to remember everything? You can, right? But what you can do is to remember like the atomic units. Like, for example, the ways of cooking, like stir fry, pan fried, deep fried. Why am I just thinking about fried? Steaming, boiling, and stuff like that. These terms, you can learn about them. You can learn like the spicy, bitter, sweet, sour, savory, like terms like these that you can learn. They're going to be like the same everywhere, right? And finally, I know this is fairly obvious, but if you do have the opportunity to use them, as I did at the Korean grocers, by all means use them. You know, this is like what you're doing all of this for, and it's like good practice even if you kind of like stutter and you get it into a bit of an awkward situation where you don't understand each other, and you can always revert back to English or your native language if you will, and if they speak it. So those would be kind of my a couple of tips I would share. So that's about all I want to kind of like share content-wise, and the language challenge for today is very, very close to this. If you, excuse me, I would just, this is just a random scenario I picked. Imagine that you're going to the cinema, right, with friends, or if you like watching a movie alone, that's cool as well. Just imagine you're going to the cinema and you're at the booth, right, the ticket booth, and visualize what happens when you usually go to the cinema and buy a ticket, or tickets plural, and come up with 5 kind of like questions and answers that you might use in when you're buying a ticket, and translate them or ask someone else how to say them and practice them. Visualize that scenario and practice using these phrases and hearing these questions until they become second nature. So that would be my challenge to you for today. All right, thank you so much once again for tuning in. And as usual, if you haven't already done so, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, just click on the red button below and the bell button after you click on the red button, and to receive updates. And as usual, yeah, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or you just want to drop by and say hi, I welcome you to do so by leaving a comment below in the comments area, again, if you're on YouTube. So thank you so much once again, and I will see you guys next time. All right, take care, guys. Cheers.